of course, the legislation that created the Solid Waste Policy and Management Act that created our office and all the infrastructure that of how to manage waste, et cetera, encourages regionalization. So we certainly want to regionalization and partnerships, and we certainly want to do that. So we want looking at folks to work together. We want to make better use of our limited grant funding. And as part of that, we would hope we could increase the recycling rate and do a better job overall with recycling in South Carolina. And one other factor that's emerged as a latecomer we knew, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, is the fact that our landfill capacity is shrinking. And in the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be some significant decisions that have to be made on expansions or new facilities, et cetera. As you all know, they're very expensive. And what that means, probably, I'm not an economist, but my guess is that means there'll be increased disposal costs for residents. For example, if a county on the coast has to send waste to Richland County, there's going to be more trucks on the road, more fuel, tires, expenses, et cetera. So anyway, the point of what we're trying to work out the past 2 years, and I will admit, when I say we, I mostly mean me, have not done a good job. I mean, we did a lot of research. We talked to other states about hub and spoke. What we're trying to do is provide grant funding to set up a hub and spoke, thinking that our goals being this will be more effective and efficient, as I just mentioned, and all the other benefits. Our priority clearly is organics, and particularly food waste. The reason for that is simple. Food waste is the number one item that goes into the landfills. In fact, we're almost have a completed MSW characterization study from our consultants out of Florida. And we've been, Sally and I and other folks have been reviewing the information and double checking. And we sent some final edits in, I think about a week ago, checking on numbers and how it was calculated, this and that. But food waste comprises basically 1/4 from this report, 1/4 of everything going into the landfill. Given that, and given our capacity issue and cost issues, we believe food waste is the priority target. And on organics overall, but food waste, to divert it from landfills, and hoping that we can begin to build an infrastructure to address this issue. The biggest misunderstanding I've had over the past 2 years, and I kind of thought we had a handle on it, but I freely admit I'm not a subject matter expert in this, but we didn't have enough funding to really get a lot of things going. We have, past 2 years, have set aside funding, and we are, trying to figure out how to move forward. One of the things we decided to do, as I mentioned earlier, is take a step back, and we're basically rebooting this. And we are going, looks like with approval internally, we did get tentative approval yesterday from EPA. We want to do a RFP for a 2-month study, a deeper dive, if you will, into organics and particularly food waste in South Carolina, on infrastructure amounts, and all the other deeper dive information will help us make good decisions. And also the report, a key point of that would be a subject matter expert providing recommendations how to move forward. I will close by saying, while I just basically talked just about organics, we're open to other commodities for the hub and spoke, if it all makes sense. Nothing is final. Nothing is final yet. We're working again internally to get everyone coordinated and agreed upon how to move forward. But the one thing we are going to do is do this study. But if someone wanted to do, for example, glass or something else, to me that would be perfectly acceptable, if it makes sense. I will share with one other fact, though, from the report, to close what I just, or put a ribbon on what I just said. we also got capture rates for some commodities, and the one commodity that just really surprised me, I thought we were doing better, is we're a capture rate of, I think, a little more than 50% of cardboard, which means, you look at one box and put a box beside it, one of them is going to landfill and one of them is getting recovered. Um, I think that is also probably an easy target we need to address. Of the couple commodities that have value, and you all know this, but just to let you know that we know it, cardboard and aluminum cans and steel cans can be a consistent commodity that helps us afford the programs, et cetera. So again, we're just in summary, we're looking at a hub and spoke. Our priority, I believe, should be organics, particularly food waste. We can divert that from the landfills, save space, and turn it into a valuable product that we can sell and help South Carolina's economy. Grace Ann, that's it.
Thank you, Richard. And Richard, we did get a question in the chat from Leslie asking about, does the report indicate the percentage of food waste that is from restaurants, schools, hotels, hospitals versus households?
It breaks it down by residential and commercial, Leslie. That's one of the reasons we want to do a deeper dive. I wish we had thought of this, or I had thought of it earlier and gotten approval to do it. But when we did the original study, we were concerned about funding and other issues. But that's what we're after, that type of information.
And then another question that popped up was, does the hub need to be the county as a primary actor, or can a college institution be the hub? And this is from Amanda Carls with USC Upstate. But she just said, I know there are a variety of rules and regulations around public institutions.
In my mind, and this Stacy and Julie and Marty and Myra, the administration has to approve this, but in my mind, no, it could be a college university. We were working with Lexington County this past year plus, and they were looking at part of they're starting they have a vendor and they're starting a composting program. Wanted to collect from other municipalities and counties, but they were one of the spokes that they were working with was University of South Carolina, and moving forward. But in theory, to me, the University of South Carolina could be a hub if they had the wherewithal to do it. You also have Fort Jackson, you have Department of Corrections, but to me, it doesn't have to be a local government. But that's something that administration needs to, as we and Grace Ann and I are working on a one-page front and back summary of what we're talking about, what the rules are going to be, and what we're trying to do. And we're delayed, and we worked on it, but we're delayed because we do want to get this study done from this RFP. I do believe it'll take, if we do the RFP in the next couple of weeks, it'll be out, say, a month, and maybe longer. Then it'll be out at least a month. It'll take, and then another month to get everything lined up. But we think we can have this wrapped up in the summer, and theoretically, hopefully, be offering grants in the fall.
Yeah, so we're hoping that, again, part of this meeting, along with that, the short study for the food waste will help us with kind of structuring the grant. And so, that's why I was saying at the beginning, this is going to be a learning experience, not just for you all, but also for us within SCDES, with trying to figure out, what has been some of the history as well as some of the challenges and lessons learned that some of these counties have faced. And that can help us with structuring these grants, as well as kind of hearing from those who are both interested as well as have concerns for setting up a hub and spoke program, so that we can kind of figure out what else we need to address. So with that said, again, I just want to let folks know you do have the ability to unmute yourselves, but please make sure that before you do that, just that you raise your hand, and I can kind of call on you throughout our time. But if you have questions that are more pressing as we're going through the presentations, please feel free to go ahead and type those up and put them into the chat, and I'll be kind of monitoring that as we go along. We are going to get into a portion now of having our speakers provide some insight. So I think I'm going to start with oldest program to newest program. Christina, would you be able to go ahead, and I think you should be able to ask for control to share your screen.
Yeah, are you able to hear me? Is my mic working okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay.
And if you have issues with sharing your screen, just let me know because I can pull up your presentation.
Yeah, no, I should be good.
Okay.
Wait, give me a second.
Okay, there you go.
Good? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Oh, and
Gracie.
Christina, there we
Yeah.
go. Okay, it's in the PowerPoint mode. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So yes, as Grace Ann mentioned, I will be sharing just a bit of information about Charleston County's compost program, some history about how we got started, how we got to where we are today, and just kind of some details surrounding that. So, as you mentioned, we, I believe, to my knowledge, are the oldest, if not one of the oldest compost programs in the state. We actually launched our official compost program in 1993. We were very rudimentary at that time. We were just mulching up some yard waste, chipping up yard waste to create mulch that most of it was being used for alternative daily cover in our landfill, but some of it was being sold back to the community. So we have had composting on the brain for quite a while. How we kind of got to this more current state with the food waste being involved, though, is around 2009, we did a waste composition study, waste characterization study of our landfill, and found exactly what's kind of displayed in this image, that about 25% of what was entering our landfill here in Charleston County was organic waste, with the vast majority of that 25% being food waste. We all know, food waste is just a huge, huge item entering our landfills. And so our council was very interested in this, as one of their main goals is always to help conserve landfill space. So they wanted our department to figure out a way that we could use this food waste material to not only extend the life of the landfill, but to give that food waste, another life, a higher purpose. So at that point, around 2009, we expanded our facility. We knew we were going to have some food waste coming in. So we, at that point, began to process 100% of the incoming yard waste that was collected from various municipalities in Charleston County. We also, around that time, enacted a plastic bag ban to make sure that all of the yard waste coming in was either loose or in paper bags, just to avoid that plastic component being in the finished compost. And around 2010, we actually collaborated with DHEC. DHEC allowed us to be the first facility in the state to pilot a food waste collection program. So this pilot was a 12-month pilot, and during the pilot, we did a few different things. So we worked to identify sources of incoming food waste materials. So, we wanted to gather food waste from county-run institutions, maybe local grocery stores, food banks, places like that. Another big component of the pilot was to develop our material handling procedures for receiving the food waste, mixing the food waste with the yard waste, creating piles, manipulating windrows. All of those details had to be looked at. And then lastly, we wanted to develop protocols for monitoring the material once it was turning into compost. So, these things that we looked at during the pilot really turned into the blueprint for, composting in our state. The pilot was successful and it became a permanent program around 2012. So at that point, Charleston County was running everything with the facility, and we needed to increase the awareness of the program within our community in order to add generators and, increase the incoming food stock. So the first thing we did was we found partners. We started with people who we have consistently kind of always worked with, people like our park system, our school district. Both of those folks actually still send us food waste material today. So another big thing that we worked on was education, just making sure people understood what composting was and why it was important. And then in addition, we worked on creating some marketing materials to get the word out about this new food waste composting program. These marketing materials and the way that we got this information out was largely grassroots. We did some press releases, we updated our websites, we did some ads, some print ads, some digital ads, radio ads. You'll see a few examples here, and we really wanted to emphasize that farm to table to compost, the entire loop, that whole movement, as well as the fact that 40% of food goes uneaten. That's just such an impactful number when you're educating folks on a program like this. We did things like mailing postcards to businesses to announce the availability to compost food waste. And then we also made arrangements to sell our finished compost to kind of close that composting loop. So on the back end, we were also figuring out ways to market our finished compost. So basically doing everything that I just mentioned with the availability to compost food scraps, but on the back end, we were reaching out to potential compost buyers to let them know we were creating this new nutrient-rich compost product that was available for purchase. So we had decent participation in this program for the next, 8, 9 years or so. In 2020, we did have a big change in our program. So we entered a public-private partnership with McGill. So they became the processor at the Beast Ferry Compost Facility, and they handle all day-to-day operations. And then our two parties, we have a revenue share for the sale of finished compost. So currently, McGill, and I think Bridget is on the call as well to answer any technical questions that may come up, but McGill is our processor who handles everything compost related these days. So because we wanted to grow the program, around 2022, we worked closely with the City of Charleston. City of Charleston had a fantastic idea to expand the compost program to a more residential focus, and we launched our residential food scrap collection program. As I mentioned, it started with the City of Charleston. And since then, it's expanded to various other municipalities, and it's really kind of morphed into a regional program. So in 2022, with the help of some funding from DHEC, the city launched a food waste collection pilot for residents to drop off their food scraps at 3 locations. Once we realized that was a success, we then started implementing other municipalities. And the way that this program works is each municipality is responsible for funding the collection of the material. And then all of us sort of collectively collaborate on the education effort, signage, and things like that. So currently, this residential food scrap composting program, we have about 25 sites. We have a great interactive map. And again, this information is sort of housed on the city's website, but every participating municipality has their own information, an interactive map, educational material on their own website. So it's extremely accessible to participants. So again, we worked with a hauler to develop collection plans and protocol. Our original hauler was Smart Recycling, who has now changed to Denali. We also created some educational workshops where we offer sort of a composting 101, how residents are able to utilize the drop-off locations, where the material goes, all that good stuff. And we do require participation in that original workshop in order to be able to gain access to the drop-off locations. There's a lock on each cart at each location. So residents do have to receive a bit of education before they're then able to access the drop-off sites. We have a whole bunch of online resources, how-to videos, flyers. We, over, the first year of the program, we worked on developing some best practices, what locations work best for collection, should the carts be unlocked, locked, all that good stuff. And then we developed some swag, everyone who attends those workshops gets a free countertop composting bin, liner bags, stickers, things like that. So, quickly, I do just want to go through, and hopefully I won't bore y'all with this. I think most of us kind of understand how the composting program works, but I just want to touch quickly on kind of what exactly we do operationally at the compost facility itself. So all of the organic material does get delivered to the Bees Ferry compost facility, and it gets processed there by McGill. The compost facility is currently about 10 acres, and there are about 5-ish employees who work there day to day. So we keep separate piles of yard waste versus food debris. The yard waste is finely ground with a wood chipper, and then the food waste gets covered to prevent vectors, and then we mix those two piles at a 10-to-1 ratio. So just a little bit of food waste in there. And then that mixture then gets placed into windrows to start processing into compost. And those windrows get up to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. The windrows stay hot for about 15 days. They get flipped 5 times by this windrow turner that you'll see in this photo, just to add oxygen. And at that point, the mixture gets moved to these aerated static piles for 30 days so that the material can cure. You'll see here this perforated pipe. It's there to push oxygen into the base of those piles, just to expedite that process with a continuous flow of oxygen. And then finally, all the compost gets screened. We have a lot of regulatory requirements that we have to meet before that can get screened, but once it's screened, it's ready to sell. It's about 45 days from start to finish. So fairly quick process. So with this residential food scrap composting program in 2025, we were able to divert about 210 tons of food waste. Now keep in mind that is in addition to approximately 2,000 tons from other program tons of incoming food waste. And then annually, this facility, we process about 60,000 tons of yard waste. So again, that's all material that if it weren't being diverted to this facility, it would, be ending up in the landfill. This is such a collaborative effort. I mean, we couldn't do this without the help of all of the partners that you see on the screen, as well as some various other municipalities that have been recently added. This residential food scrap program, as well as the compost program in general, is continuing to grow. However, I do want to mention here, and I'm sure Bridget can speak to this, Bridget with McGill can speak to this as well. We do still have capacity at our compost site. So we, are just so happy to be considered a hub of this compost program, and we're, ready to add some spokes. So that is where I will end. Grace Ann, just let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Christina. That was great. I think I saw Megan's hand go up. So Megan, if you want to unmute yourself, Megan is with Denali, which used to be Smart Recycling. So I'll let you have the floor.
Thank you, Christina. I just wanted to ask, in the history you were talking about when you guys added the food waste and the marketing materials you used at that time, wasn't there a pilot program with some grant funding at that time as well, where you encouraged some restaurants to join the program for a time? That was before I was with Smart, but I've heard about it, so I was curious.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. That was a collaboration between Charleston County and the city of Charleston. And we were able to collectively use grant funding to push the food waste composting program to a specific area within downtown. It was called the Upper Peninsula. And it was an area where there was just kind of a collection of high volume producing restaurants who go through a lot of food waste daily. So we were able to work with, it was DHEC at that time, we were able to work with DHEC to actually fund hauling for, I believe it was 6 or 7 restaurants for a year. And to my knowledge, most of those restaurants, after that year of grant funding was used up, they were able to continue diverting their food scraps on their own. Yeah.
And it looks like, Christina, we also have a question from Leslie that says, can you please repeat the food waste tonnage and yard debris tonnage processed annually?
Yeah, so annually, this facility processes about 2,000 tons of food waste and about 60,000 tons of yard waste.
And do you know how much of that tonnage comes from residential and then how much would come from businesses?
So about 200 tons annually, give or take, comes from the residential sector, that's tracked through the residential food scrap composting program. Now, other residents may just bring some material in here and there that would just be tracked along with all the commercial tonnage. So it's about 200 or so tons from the residential sector, and then, right around 2,000 tons from the commercial sector.
And is Denali usually the one servicing those restaurants in the area?
Denali is, yeah, by and large, our biggest hauler in this area, and they're the company that we utilize for the residential food scrap composting program.
And then can you in terms of, I guess, like uh, partnering with the cities, you were saying that those cities are responsible for getting the material to y'all, so that's where kind of they provide funding, but are there like any tipping fees or other fees that are associated with having, I guess, folks come to you?
So that would just be, included in the cost from the hauler, the tipping fees would. So the hauler is the one who provides the collection containers as well as the collection itself, and the tipping fees at the site are included and Megan, let me know if I'm misquoting that. But all of the fees, that a municipality would pay as far as tipping would be included in that price. Yeah, Megan agrees.
Thanks, Megan. All right. Well, let's see. And then Betsy added, is the county tipping fee for compost still $15 a ton? And curious what the current fee for municipal solid waste is.
$15 a ton for food scraps. Yes, the municipal solid waste tipping fee has gone up a bit. Um, I don't quote me on this, but I believe it's around $150 a ton.
All right. And then I know that a lot of the material that you all are collecting was or is from cities, but if other counties wanted to become involved, is there anything that they would need to factor in?
To my knowledge, no. I think that we are completely open to accepting regional material.
Okay.
They would
Good to
just need
hear.
to, if they're going to bring material, they would want to bring material directly to the facility. They would just need to, contact the scale house, get an account set up, all that good stuff. If it's not coming through a hauler, is what I mean.
Okay. And y'all are open, like it's running every day, so it would be something that it wouldn't have to be kind of like scheduled out, like you have 3 days where it's being processed.
Yeah, and so I mean, to my knowledge, I think that they would, and this might be a better question for Bridget with McGill, but to my knowledge, they'd be able to accept the material, Monday through Saturday.
Okay,
And then I'm
well,
sorry, one
okay.
correction in what I told you guys. The tip fee for MSW is 100 per ton, not 150.
Okay. All right. Well, if folks have more questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I did see that we had a question for Richard that came in right as we were getting the presentation started. But this is from Jamie Smith, Richard. They said, I may have missed it, but what do you believe the maximum amount of the hub and spoke grants are going to be?
That's a great question. We need to decide that. We need to decide that internally. We had some figures in mind. And again, mistake I made early on is I didn't know how expensive it would be on equipment, et cetera. I knew it would be expensive, but the short answer is no, but I would hope that it would be significant. We do have funding set aside. We're hoping to get, well, we will be getting additional funding from EPA through a second round of the Swiffer grant. And we're having internal discussions, nothing approved, nothing decided on using some or most of that funding for this program as well. So the short answer is not yet. Stay tuned. I wish I could say, but we've not. We're rebooting we are rebooting this, and to see as we move forward, we'll have more information that we can share with you what we think we can offer.
All right, thank you, Richard. Well, it looks like there are not any other questions right now for Charleston County. So I'm going to thank you so much, Christina and Megan, for sharing about your operations. I'm going to move to another part of the coast, but just a little bit further north with Horry County. So I think we have Stephanie Todd and Esther Murphy on the call who are going to be able to share a little bit more about their program.
Good morning. Good morning. Can y'all hear us okay?
Yes, we can hear you. We
Okay,
just can't see you. And if
You
you
don't
want
wanna
to try to
see
share
us?
your screen. Esther, we always want to see your
we're
face.
gonna try to share our screen. Let us see what we
Okay.
can do here.
And also, as you all are pulling up, we did get another question from Betsy.
Uh-oh.
And she was saying that if the study finds that hauling is cost prohibitive for rural counties, could we see a tiered grant structure? So perhaps a like transfer grant for those within 15 miles of a hub, but a larger infrastructure grant. So something that could be around $15,000, or excuse me, $150,000 for those in food waste deserts who need to rebuild their own on-site processing to be economically viable. But yeah, Richard, since we were just talking about kind of money, is that something that that you have thought about doing? I don't think I can personally say we have not discussed it, so that's a great idea, Betsy. But yeah, Richard, do you want to talk on that really quickly?
Sure. Betsy, that's a great question. And the short answer is that's one of the reasons why we're having these meetings and a couple more meetings to follow. But we're open to all that. That's also why we're doing this study to get recommendations about how to best manage this. One thing that I'm 100% sure of is that this is going to be very expensive no matter what. And once we have funding to help set up infrastructure, or once we provide funding to set up infrastructure, we also know that's going to be a cost at some point for local governments. So anyway,
It says you're sharing your screen.
we're trying we're thinking about all of that, and that's I hope you remain on, or you're part of all the calls and throw those questions out, that we can consider all that as we put the idea of how the grant needs to be structured together. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And Esther, I went ahead and unmuted you, or excuse me, muted you. But if you want to unmute yourself, and then also, it looks like y'all were starting to share the screen, but it is like we can see the next slide, so we get to cheat a little bit. But if y'all want to unmute yourselves again, that would be great.
Okay, let me see if I can not share this one. It's funny because it's sharing the wrong screen. So hold on a second. Only in the world of this.
There you go. I think if you press that one, there you go. Okay, we're
Okay,
good to
y'all
go.
good?
Yes.
Hold on. I'm gonna get out the way and let Stephanie.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and get started. Of course, since you have seen the background information, I'm going on year 20 here, and when I started here, they were already doing category 1 composting. So we've been doing this for quite a long time, but like in 2014, we did submit to, at the time, what was DHEC, to get a permit to become a category 2 facility so that we could take acceptable food waste materials. So then in March of 2015, we were able to get our permit approval and begin that. Operator here. Okay. So we do have this sign up for type 2 acceptable materials so that when haulers or Coastal Carolina University or anyone comes in that has materials, they know immediately what we can and cannot take. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's on our website for individuals that are looking to bring in food waste to take to our recycling centers that are participating. So we want to try to make it as easy as we possibly can so we can get the most participation. It does produce a savings for people that bring in the food waste because our normal tipping fee for solid waste is $46 a ton. And then if you segregate your food waste, that is disposed of at $22 a ton because it's considered as recycling since we're taking it and using it to make another product, which is what we call our enhanced compost. Just a picture of our yard waste coming in. We don't take any type of plastic bags. We tried to get that cleaned up pretty good and it's worked very well for us. So we can have materials come in paper bags because that's something that can break down into our compost. Here's a picture of our food waste bunker. It's a concrete floor bunker that when food waste is brought in, it's brought in and mixed on a 3-to-1 ratio. And Denali, formerly Smart Recycling, is our food waste hauler. And they do an excellent job when they bring the materials in because it's really clean. So kudos to them for that. Photo of the incoming waste being dumped into the pad. And then one where we mixed it with a loader bucket. So what we do is we mix it with a loader bucket and then we get it ready for windrows. So for our windrows, we have roughly 8 windrows on our site because it is a smaller site. We have dedicated 4 of those for category 1 compost and 4 of them for the enhanced compost because we still have some very loyal customers that prefer the category 1. So we want to make sure that they're able to still get that material. So in here, that's a picture where they're mixing the materials up and then we put down a 6-inch bed of regular ground yard waste. And then we take the material from the bunker and place it on top of the bed. And then after we do that, we take about 6 inches more and place it over the top of the material so that it's encapsulated to keep vectors out and to control odors. So that would be kind of the start of the windrow. So as we go along for the food waste composting windrows, we We lay the bed down, mix the material, and then encapsulate it. And we did get a grant when we first started doing food waste composting to purchase a catalyst, which was supposed to help with feeding the temperatures and the compost, the breakdown or degradation time of the windrow so that we can move the material faster. And we still have a lot of this catalyst on hand, and it looks like soil that we just put in a couple of places once the road is completely constructed. And we dig a couple of holes along and along and just put it in and then let it do what it does. And it's completely safe. It enhances the biological process of the compost. It helps with odor mitigation, and it helps with temperatures to ensure that the conditions are being maintained without the need for more frequent turning than what we do, because our permit says we have to turn at least once a week. And we also do temperature monitoring and moisture monitoring weekly. And like she was saying earlier, we do want to reach that 130 Fahrenheit temperature for a minimum of 15 days, but we normally leave ours on considerably longer. Because even though technically it is ready to be screened and sold as a finished product, we have found that if you leave it on there a little longer, let it process down a little more and break down more, then you have a better product. We have a lot of people that love our compost, and normally, in the spring and in the fall, we always run out because people, they love it. They say there's very little to no weed growth in it. And it suits their purposes. That's a picture of the temperature monitoring probe, and we have about 3 or 4 locations down the windrows where we just insert those probes and then read the temperatures and record it on a chart. We do the same thing for the moisture content. If during the summertime when it's hot and dry and we don't see a lot of rain, then we will take our water truck and water the rows to ensure that we keep that moisture content up where it needs to be. So that's a photo of the moisture probe. The windrow turning, we have, like I said, 2 types of compost. For the regular category 1, when we construct a row, we turn it 5 consecutive days after the row construction is complete, and then we go to once a week. For the type 2 compost or the food waste compost, and after we construct the row, then we wait 30 days to turn it for the first time, and then an additional 15 days for the second turn, and then it goes on a weekly schedule. And we use a Bacchus windrow turner, and it works very well. There's a photo of it there. It just rolls over the top of the row, and the drum turns with the paddles, and it introduces the air and kind of fluffs it up. So it works very well. We do have our regulatory signage up at the end of each row. It contains the row name and what type of feedstock it is, so if it's category 1 or 2. Then we remove contaminants after it's gone through the process of breakdown where the dot's at. We just feed it into the trommel screen and screen it out. The rejects, like if there's big woody pieces or anything that came in the food waste that didn't get broken down, then we can take that up to the hill, and then our finished product will come out on the other side. So there's our finished product. We do sample and test this quarterly based off of the amount of material that we produce. It is analyzed by a certified lab with the U.S. Composting Council, and we are in the STA program with them. So that's a really good thing. So when we do the samples and we get our analytical data back, each time I make copies of it and make it available for anyone that comes through the scale house that asks for what we call our category 2 compost, which is enhanced compost, so that they have the information that they need. Because surprisingly, a lot of people ask for that. We also provide an end use kind of a guide sheet as to how the compost can be used for different applications, which is also included in that packet with the lab data to try to give our customers even more information. Then we bring it from the back up to the front area where it's available for customers. And let's see, for FY25, we took in 35,188 tons of yard waste. And then we sold 769 tons of the food waste compost and 1,126 tons of the category 1 or regular yard waste compost. And then so far in 26, we have sold 131 tons of the category 2 compost or our enhanced compost. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Stephanie. One question I had is, how much do y'all sell, or in terms of like selling your compost, how much does that typically cost for folks?
Well, for the regular category 1, it's $22 a ton and $32 for the enhanced.
And if it's just kind of, I'm assuming like y'all are partnering with some bigger like landscaping companies. But it, like, in terms of selling them to residents, that's something that you all also allow.
We do sell to landscaping companies. Everything is on a first come, first served basis. So we do try to tell people if that's something that you're looking for, you need to call us ahead of time to make sure that we have it available for you. But we do landscapers, we do just individuals that come in and maybe just want to get a couple of flower pots with it. Anything that the customers want, any amount, we're available to accommodate.
That's great to hear. And with have y'all had any issues with kind of the changing of the seasons of not being able to sell off any of your material?
No, we've never had a problem because, like I said, usually we have a problem is we don't ever have enough. We can't make it fast enough. Because like I said, we do have a lot of really loyal customers that love our product. And, you know, as soon as the spring time starts, like next month, it'll be flying out the door. And then again, usually in the fall, when people are doing like a freshen up of their flower beds and different things, then we'll have another really big rush. But really, people come in all year long and buy it.
And then in terms of, I guess, finding, or we heard a little bit from Charleston County about how they formed partnerships. Can you speak a little bit to that in terms of how you all went about doing that? And
Now,
I
when
guess
you
the
say-
education side.
When you say partnerships, Grace Ann, are you talking about any specific partners? I mean, we
Well, I guess more so like the feedstock. Like I think you all have a couple of like residential collection sites, but those are at convenience centers instead of doing what Charleston has done of having the like putting individual containers that are locked in different parks throughout the community. But you all have a different setup, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We began our pilot program at the recycling centers in December of 22, and Smart Now Denali partnered with us in that aspect. We started with one center. We currently are at 5 centers, and are continuing that as a pilot program. We're just trying to get to the point of having enough information to know whether or not it's something the residents are going to actually utilize. We saw an uptick in usage the first 3 years. Last year, we did have a downturn. And last year was the year we probably produced the most public education information on the program, as well as made the most in-person visits to the sites, where we would spend a couple of hours, morning, a couple of hours in the evening, just promoting food waste, composting. So this particular year, our board of directors decided to run it one more year to see, and again, we're enhancing our public education, enhancing the signage at the centers. We'll have our gardening workshop soon. Again, another push this weekend at the home show. We'll again be distributing the information on food waste composting and where they can go to do it. So we haven't given up as of yet. However, it's almost you get to a wall that you're trying to figure out what else to do to garner interest, other than me going to your house and putting it in the compost bin and bringing it myself. And I don't plan on doing that. So we shall see how that turns out.
Do you feel like some of that, Esther, is due to, since y'all are doing a lot of education, that folks are wanting to do more backyard composting at home? And so, those who are, interested in composting in general, they're realizing, oh, we can do this at home versus taking it to a drop-off site.
That could be the case, Grace Ann. We still, and I'm sure other counties do also, we still do backyard compost bin giveaways. At least we try to do it about once a year. And I know the city of Conway, I believe, recently received a grant to offer backyard composting bins to their residents. So that could be a part of what's caused a stall or a decline in the food waste going to the centers.
And I do have a couple of questions for you guys as well. And one of those is, Savannah was wondering what percentage of food waste is from the drop-off locations versus commercial? And do you have a number of how much food waste is coming in annually?
The percentage that's coming in from residents versus the commercial side, it's hard for me to respond. Megan from Denali may be able to, because Denali is probably the principal hauler of food waste in Horry County. They're not, to my knowledge, other than Coastal Carolina University. I don't believe there's another hauler that's bringing food waste in. And just like Megan, I know she collects from the centers as well as Horry County schools and a few businesses. So she may be able better to answer that question as far as the breakdown.
Do you want me to comment?
Yeah, feel free
Sure.
to, Megan.
Okay, great. I would say that from the drop-off centers, I think it's averaging close to a ton a month. And so the majority of what we're bringing to Horry County today is from the Horry County school system. We do have a few other customers in the area, but by and large, the 95% of what we're hauling is from the school district there. And then a ton or so is being picked up over the course of the weeks at those convenient sites.
And in terms of, I guess, like the growth that you all are wanting to potentially do, Esther, if you find that, I guess, the residential side folks aren't being as responsive to that as you were hoping, are y'all going to potentially kind of like swap your attention more to doing education and like reaching out to businesses in the area?
And I will say, when we first started with our food waste collection site here at the landfill, we contacted every hauler in the county. We did a push to those who are on our business recycling program to let them know we have an outlet for food waste compost or recycling that can be used in our composting facility. So we did a push to make sure everyone knew what was available here at the landfill. When we go to businesses or presentations, wherever we're at, we're always promoting that we have the ability to accept food waste recycling here at the landfill. What we do not have the ability to do on our end is collect it. So, we'll encourage it, whether it's a resident, whether it's a business, whether it's a school. And we work really closely with Horry County Schools to help them continue, because I know they had fallen off a little while ago. But we're always promoting it. The audience is vast here. We, as we like to say, we'll talk to you from birth to cradle to the grave kind of situation. But we talk all programs. So, and we're not the end all be all. We always know that. So if someone says, hey, I want to do that, then we afford them that, okay, well, there's a hauler that's hauling in the county. Here's the information. So we are promoting that. Are we going to go to the point or the extent of developing a program where we haul food waste? I don't foresee that happening.
Mhm.
But I don't foresee a lot of things. So.
Well, and I guess Leslie also put in the chat, I guess when businesses are trying to use y'all, is it typical that they are signing up with Denali for the service? Like when they are, I guess, figuring out if they're going to use you all, would they just kind of go through Denali for that? And Leslie, correct me if I'm butchering your question. Or is it more of, they come to you first and then you kind of connect them to a hauler?
They can bring their food waste directly here. There's no requirement that it comes from a specific hauler or that a resident can't. We have residents who like to do stuff on their own. If somebody rolls in here and say, hey, I've got my trailer load of my food waste from the last 3 months, which is not a good idea. But if that was to happen, we'll say bring it on back. So, that option as to whether they use a private hauler or if they direct haul themselves is totally up to them. If they ask for information on a hauler, we will share. We actually have on our website hauler information, and we'll direct them to that part of our website so they can see what haulers may offer the service they're looking for.
And it looks like, Richard, you had your hand up, so I'll let you speak. Richard? I guess as he's trying to figure out unmuting. Okay, there we go.
I got it. Yeah. Esther, in your there's a couple things that to me you crystallize. I think there are some residents willing to recycle, if you will, bring food waste to you, but again, the convenience centers are not necessarily convenient for everyone. So that's an issue. The second part of that in your work targeting restaurants, and I've heard you guys have a few restaurants, I'm not sure, but I've heard that there are a few down in Horry County. What do you hear back from the restaurants? Are there space considerations? And is the pickup, have you gotten any kind of ideas that is it cost prohibitive? Is it okay? Or they don't want to do it? What do you hear from the restaurants? Because I think obviously you guys would be a huge target on that end.
I'm gonna answer that by going to a different type of recycling program. I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 years ago, we ran a pilot glass recycling program on one of the probably busiest streets in North Myrtle Beach, full of nothing but restaurants and bars. We provided the inside containers to use. We provided very nice forecaster heavy duty roll carts on the outside to use to transfer your material. We provided pickup of the material at no cost whatsoever. All you had to do was utilize the containers. And it failed. We had maybe 10 to 12 businesses that initially began participating. And it dwindled down. I don't think the pilot even lasted 6 months. And one of the primary reasons that we heard back from the businesses was, first of all, it was their service didn't have time to sort the material while on duty. It wasn't convenient enough, and I don't know how much more to make it any more convenient. There was some things about space, because yes, there are plenty of restaurants and everything else, hotels and everything here, but space is always an issue, even if it's just a regular 8-yard container to put cardboard in. If I'm taking up a parking space with that container, it's an issue. Because that parking space is more valuable to them as a parking space than as a outlet for putting a recycling container. So that was an issue. Cost was not an issue at that point in time because they had no cost in it whatsoever. When it comes to, and I don't want to pigeonhole food waste, even though that's the subject matter right now. When it comes to any addition of a container at a business, unless it's been sited and constructed in a manner that you're going to have a large enough area, corral, whatever, to handle multiple types of containers, the chance and likelihood of us being able to put a container in becomes tough. That business really has to have that mindset to say, this is what we're going to do at whatever cost. And you can always show businesses, this is where your cost savings will happen, especially if you're a restaurant, and segregating your waste, because, it's less than half to bring food waste in here versus, a mixed load of class 3 waste. But if you don't have that dedication and you're not so inclined to do so, because that covers, pretty much, you will have additional hauling costs if you're not bringing it yourself. But I don't know that your initial thrust will be, this is something I want to do. Can it become cost prohibitive? Of course. If I can't reduce your overall waste enough to cover the additional cost of hauling it and disposing of it here at the landfill, where's the incentive? For a business, I would imagine it has to make business sense because I am, trying to run a business and make a profit.
Yeah. I understand. Esther, if you don't mind, what is your tipping fee for MSW?
Cheap is $46 a ton.
And I'm assuming, based on all our discussions, et cetera, with everyone and research, that the charges to have a container and the pickup of the material is higher than $46.
I believe so, but I'm gonna let Megan address that as a hauler.
All right. Oh, Megan, you want to share?
Well, I was just going to say that without getting into specifics, because each account would be unique, but yes, I mean, if you're not just paying for the tipping, you're paying for the hauling in that case. So, and the tipping fee for compost is, much, much lower than the $46, but the overall cost of paying someone to then haul that to the compost facility is on top of that, I think is, going to be similar to whatever if they're paying a private hauler for their dumpster haul. So we would definitely have to find a way to offset some of that for them if cost is the deciding factor for them, for sure.
And I'm assuming that, and maybe Megan, you can speak to this, like with those areas that they're a lot more compact and they don't have as much space. I'm assuming y'all would be having to go around more often to collect from them.
Probably we offer 64-gallon totes, so those don't take up as much space as, say, a dumpster, or 3-yard, 6-yard bin. But yeah, if it's a restaurant and they're putting out a lot, I mean, in Charleston, we have customers restaurant customers that get service, sometimes 2, 3, 4 days a week, depending on how busy they are. Fortunately, today we run a route in Myrtle Beach area or Horry County across the county 5 to 6 days a week. So, we probably could accommodate 3 days a week of service if, within the route that we currently operate.
Good to know. Well, just looking at the time, I did want, and I'm seeing that there are some good comments from Betsy in the chat section. And then Pete, I did see your question. I'm going to see if Greenville could also go ahead and start sharing, and then we can get to your question, Pete. So thank you, Esther and Stephanie, and then also Megan, for sharing some more about some of the operations in Horry County. If folks have more questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat. Andrew, if you want to go ahead and start trying to share your screen, I'm going to let Betsy speak really quickly before you begin. So Betsy, if you want to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Grace. Yeah, I put in a couple comments. Hopefully those can get saved for after the meeting to think about using for the report, but one of them is more a question, so I just wanted to read it for the DES folks. One of the things I've been thinking about for years with this hub and spoke possibility is the amount of existing infrastructure in the state of South Carolina that's already a permitted type 1 compost facility doing mulch and yard. I think there's like 100, maybe more throughout the state versus what are there, 4 type 2 commercial facilities, so not very many. And it would be interesting to hear, maybe connect with some of those type 1 facility operators to understand the reasons why they might be hesitant to add food waste to their compost facility, assuming it's probably related to contamination concerns, vector concerns, labor, operational concerns. I think that that's like a low-hanging fruit opportunity to pursue, maybe helping to support, subsidize, educate those already permitted, they already have the land. So checking off a lot of those boxes that are challenges for people to start composting food waste. So yeah, as it related to Horry County's presentation and the transition from type 1 to type 2, and we heard from Charleston County some of those reasons why. Those are both municipalities, so it makes sense to offer that service to the residents, but for private businesses, maybe those mulch and yard facilities, it would incentivize them, bring in a new revenue stream, collecting the material and selling the compost, but understanding their concerns could help this team figure out, how to structure the grant or maybe target them to be recipients of funding for equipment that could help them compost food waste in a really safe, automated, contained way. So
Yes,
yeah, the question was how many type 1 and how many type 2 are in the state?
And Richard, I don't know if you know that number off the top of your head. I do not, but we do have Justin Kuhn is one of our permitting folks, and I don't think he's on the call right now, but we'll speak with him if we to get some more clarification. But Richard.
Yeah, I Justin just walked by my door and I couldn't grab him. I don't know, and I don't want to give an estimated number. I don't want to be wrong. So, Betsy, we'll get back to everyone on that one. That's a good question, and we'll take care of it.
All right. Thank you, Betsy, for all your good ideas. We are going to go ahead and let Andrew and Marcia take the floor with Greenville County. And Andrew, I can see your screen, but it's not in the PowerPoint mode yet, but we can't hear you yet.
You hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. And then I think we're seeing the individual slides.
See it now?
If you go down to the bottom of the screen and then click the slideshow, in like the bottom right where it says like comments. Yeah, and then click that and see if that will do it.
You see it now?
No, see, it's blocked out.
It's over here. Well,
Well, it's okay. We'll just we
Go
can
to
still
the
see the big
top
slides.
and hit slideshow. Okay, never mind.
what do we see now?
Yeah, go to the top and hit slideshow.
Oh, I was on. I'm sorry.
This guy?
No, beside
Oh.
the home. No, on the
Oh.
taskbar it says home, insert design, and then slideshow. There you go, and
From
then hit
beginning?
from beginning.
All right. Wait, do we see it now?
Press it again.
It may be, Andrew. I know sometimes, like if I have a dual screen, it'll not show. It'll show like just the individual slides on one screen and then the main slideshow on another. So I don't know if you have two screens, then that could be why we're just seeing the.
I do.
Just hit the top button that says from beginning.
See, on my
I think-
screen, it's showing the presentation.
Yeah, so Andrew, if you want to just do unshare, and then when it pops back up, it'll show like two screens that you can choose. So maybe I think you should be able to choose the one that shows like the full slideshow. Okay. All right, and then there you go, and then swap presenter. All right, there we go.
Okay. Cool.
We got it.
All righty. All right, so I'm just going to quickly talk about our program, kind of a quick overview, and then Marsha's going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges we have and foresee having going forward. So the background of our program, several years ago, we entered a partnership with Atlas Organics. Basically, the county gave them a plot of land here at our landfill. The agreement was, you guys do your thing down there, buy mulch from us. That was a challenge we have. We have a tub grinder here at the landfill, but we don't really have a steady outfall market for the mulch. I mean, we give it away to residents, but they don't take enough to keep up with the demand. So that was really the benefit for us. I believe it was the first partnership of its kind in the state. And about 2 years ago, Atlas got bought out by a big national company, and they decided that the agreement with us was not feasible in this market, so they decided to leave us. So what did that leave us with? A lot of yard waste to make a lot of mulch with nothing to do with it. So what ended up, most of it was going into our C&D landfill, just because we didn't have anywhere to put that mulch. So we had a decision to make. We could find a new vendor. We could just be done with composting, or we could do it ourselves. We went down the find a new vendor road first. That was the big goal, but that didn't really work out. The model that worked for us doesn't really work for these companies anymore. So, and then we kind of thought, well, let's just be done. But then we have all this mulch, so we decided we've watched this be done for years. I think we could do it ourselves, so we did. So the startup, we already had the site. It was already designed. We had been watching them do it, so we really just replicated what they did. But we did have to find an operator. We were very lucky to get the guy that worked for Atlas, the only person that's ever operated that site. Just so happened he was looking for a job, so we scooped him up. We had to go through the permitting process again to get the permit under us. It was under Atlas Organics. Then we had to find food waste customers. That was the thing with Atlas, is everything that came in, they brought themselves pretty much. So we had to get out there and figure out how do we get the food waste in. Then we had to figure out what to do with the finished product. That's still a little bit of a challenge for us. And of course, we needed equipment. Atlas took all their stuff with them for the most part, so we had to come up with that. So some of our food waste customers, our big one, Smart Recycling, now Denali, they pick up commercial restaurants, schools, things like that. There's a lot of industry in this area, probably the most industrial region of South Carolina. So we really went after the food manufacturers, people that are making food product. There's always some kind of manufacturing byproduct in that. So we went hard after that. And we branch out more than just the upstate. I mean, this is a thing that people are looking for all over the place. So we don't care where it's coming from. If you have food waste, we'll take it. We see it as a benefit to us. We're not filling the landfill with it. So and then local haulers. We reached out to all of our local, Republic Waste Management, Waste Connections, and just let them know, hey, we're doing this now. If you have a customer that's interested or needs this, that's how we got one of our biggest customers, is they went to Republic and said, we want to be composting. How do we do it? Some pictures of what we take. This is a Smart now Denali load. It's what kind of just miscellaneous restaurant manufacturing waste. This is about 5 tons of coffee grounds and chaff, stuff from a very famous coffee manufacturer. This here is off-spec mayonnaise from another well-known mayonnaise manufacturer in the upstate. We kind of got into being able to take more liquid loads. This is all our operator. We build kind of a containment bowl out of mulch, and it really holds it well. We realize we don't need to make a pit or anything. We can really handle it in this fashion. Another thing we take a fair amount of is off-spec product. There's a lot of grocery store distribution centers in the upstate. This isn't not a particularly clean stream. You see pallets, boxes, packaging. A lot of it's not able to be composted, but we do take enough to be significant. And then, of course, grocery store waste. That's what we really love. That's your fruits and vegetables. We'd love to take more of that. We've determined it's the best thing. This is a depackaged load from one of our partners. They have a depackager machine that basically grinds everything up into a slurry, pulls the plastic, etc. out. And it's already kind of incorporated really well to where it works really good in our process. Unlike this, where you see a lot of pumpkins in here, watermelons. Sometimes those outer shells don't really like to break down quick. We go after industry a good bit. We work with the Department of Commerce, or they connect the dots with some things when a new manufacturing operation comes to town. If they identify that they might be producing food waste, they try to connect us on that. And then, of course, we started our public drop-off center, very similar to Horry and Charleston. We don't lock our bins, which does lead to some contamination, but we have 3 centers that do it right now. It's just 4. It's very insignificant volume, but we want to promote to the residents that, hey, we're doing this, and frankly, we're the only ones around that are. So the numbers have gone up. We have one center in particular that does really good, more than we expected, and the other 2 are not great. Compost buyers. So there is demand for this stuff. We make a certified STA product. It gets tested through the U.S. Compost Council, similar to what Horry does. Our biggest end user is a local mulch yard. He buys it from us and he sells it all over the upstate. It sells really good. I understand he's making some pretty good margins on it. But we're always looking for more outlets. He can only take so much. We haven't really been able to get, there's a lot of competition out there in that world. So I'll talk quickly about the system we use. We use aerated static piles. The benefit we found to that compared to your windrow, where you have to turn them system, is it's very low labor intensive. We only have one guy. He manages the grinding, the mixing, the buys, everything compost related is one single operator. So this really frees him up. What it is it's a bouncy house blower in a doghouse, very, very high tech. We have them running on a Rainbird irrigation timer, just like what you would have in your yard. It turns these things on for a set interval. They come on, I believe, 4 times an hour, and they blow a steady stream of air. It runs the full length of the pile. These pipes are perforated, so the air just works up into the pile. The benefit of that is when you have a windrow system, the only time you're introducing air to those piles is when you turn. And it eats that up pretty quickly. Whereas they're getting air 24 hours a day. So it really, it's to me, it seems like a quicker process. Very low labor intensive, very little equipment needed. Just the initial startup of getting the equipment, the blower, the pipes, all that. But after that, you're set. So we did have to buy some equipment. We relied a lot on grants from the Department of Environmental Services. We used our solid waste grant, I believe, the creativity grant, which I think this hub and spoke replaced. But one of the things we got was a trommel screener. This is a Diamond Z. It's the same brand as our grinder. We went with them so we could have some maintenance consistency there. This is how we make our product sellable, essentially. This screens out any contamination, any big pieces of wood, corn cobs, things that didn't break down. What we do with those are called overs. We put them right back in the process and give them another chance. We don't pull them out for landfill until we see a large amount of contamination in there. But what comes out, what I call the good side, is your small finished product. Another thing we bought partially with a grant is our RioTemp Cloud Watch system. This was really a game changer in my opinion. These allow us to monitor our temperature piles remotely, and it's real time. So we have 2 of these probes in every pile. This probe takes 2 temperature readings, one at about the middle and one at the very tip, and it averages those together and then averages the other probe. So we can see pile by pile what our average temperature is. And this prevents us from having to climb on the pile and stick the thing down in there. And it's a lot more accurate. When we're getting constant readings, we can stay on top of things a lot better. It also lets us know when something's concerning. If we get a pile that gets particularly hot, they are known to catch fire. And we can catch that as it's happening and do something about it before it gets out of hand. And it makes our regulatory requirements really simple. We don't have to keep a physical logbook anymore. This, every 15 minutes, it records a temperature and puts it in a logbook that we can access. We print it out when needed, but it's a lot. It's just an easier system. So this is what our dashboard looks like. You can see on here, this is just a screen grab. These are different piles. What is really nice about it is it tracks our regulatory, or not regulatory, but our temperature requirements for that STA certification. You have to reach a certain temperature for so many days to get what they call PFRP, which stands for something. We hit that. Once we get that, this line turns green and it starts counting up until we've reached our whatever we need to reach, and then it says you're good. So at that point, we know we can progress this pile, or we need to leave it on for 3 more days. Or if there were ever a point where we dip below that temperature, that has never happened, but if it did, it would start the clock over, and we would it would pick back up when we reach that temperature. Here's a better view of what it is. This is our little pie chart that shows. So you'll see we have this much left to go over here, and we're completely done here. VARS is another vector attraction reduction. It's two different thresholds, different temperatures, different length of time. We have to meet them both before we can progress that pile. And this is what our finished product looks like. We have a lot right now. If anybody wants some, we're happy to come on down to Twin Chimneys Landfill. Numbers to date, this is as of May 2025. I have some better updated numbers here if anybody has questions, but the moral of this story is we wanted to look back, look at all of our costs and see, are we making money here? Are we losing money here? What are we doing? And the first year we determined that we're coming pretty close to breaking even. And that's really impressive for the first year of a program, because the early months of it, we were taking practically nothing. I mean, we were taking maybe 3-4 tons a week, and we've ramped that up a good bit. So I think going forward, especially if we can keep the inbound material constant and the outbound going out to, the wholesale, we can keep those numbers up, then I do believe we will turn a profit. And I think there's a sky's the limit on that. Well, that's all I have. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcia, talk a little bit about some challenges we see.
Ask for questions first. Hi.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi. In case anybody has any questions, but I wanted to talk a minute because we've really been looking at hub and spoke and trying to see how we could benefit the other counties. And one of the ways we could do that is we could provide collection. So we think we can cover the cost of the O&M on collection equipment, but what we don't think we could cover initially would be the cost of a full-time employee. And that's a little trickier thing to do with the county, is to get the authorization for another FTE for the solid waste, for the enterprise fund. So we think that once we were able to start collecting where the municipalities or the counties collect at their collection points, which their investment would be cans, it wouldn't be a big lift. We could then incorporate maybe some of the back of the door, back of the house restaurants in those same counties. And once that happened, if there was a charge, we think we could work the revenue to cover the cost of the FTE. But I think going right out of the gate, I think that's our biggest stumbling point, that if we had the money for the employee, we think we could provide that service, or if we had the money for the contractor. But what we've looked at is we think we can run a small rear loader and a full-time employee that works for the county cheaper than we can pay a contractor, because they want a lot of money per unit they pick up at. And then as time went on, I don't think we'd see the incentive to branch out to industrial clients to get more industrial waste in, or hospital waste, or wherever cafeterias are. So that's my spiel. Any questions for our presentation? Nice. That's the way we like it.
It means that you guys covered everything. Well, no, thank you, Marcia, for kind of giving a picture of, in the future, in terms of partnering and doing a hub and spoke with others, what that would potentially look like. And we probably will have some more questions on that a little bit later as it sinks in, and we can kind of figure out from a grant's perspective how that could potentially play out as well. But we really appreciate both Andrew and you going into some good detail about your programs. I know that we are right at time. I did want, if I'm very willing to stay on, and if others are, to allow for any other questions, or for folks to voice any concerns or just kind of other ideas. you're welcome to put that in the chat. Another thing I did want to point out that we didn't have time to go over today, we did have a regional meeting in York County yesterday for some of the Eastern Upstate folks. And Leslie did mention that York County would be interested in partnering with folks to do a glass hub. So that is another opportunity that would potentially be out there. And then, though Victoria Hoffman is not on the call today, Beaufort County is just starting to have their composting program get started. And they had a grant, not through us, that through, I think, either the U.S. Department of Ag or the FDA. I think it was Department of Ag, excuse me, to get their program up and running. So hopefully we can hear from them as well. But we are going to be having an in-person session next week on February 25th. That will be at our Columbia office, so 2600 Bull Street in Columbia. And we would love for you all to be able to join us just to have a little more flexibility in having conversations, both as a group as well as any side conversations with folks in your area that you think would potentially be a good fit for partnering. We did have a few folks, and I didn't mention this at the I mentioned that we had some industrial folks on the line, but I didn't mention with whom they came. So we have Betsy LaForce with Green. I wrote it down. If you want to, what is your company again, Betsy?
Green
Sorry.
Mountain Technologies. And we were actually the equipment provider that won the RFP for the Beaufort County installation, which happened in December. So I worked closely with Victoria on that. And before, I was with the Coastal Conservation League. So I worked with Beaufort County at looking at solutions to get them out of their conundrum, which was lack of proximity to an existing commercial composting facility. They wanted to haul to Bees Ferry, but that just didn't make economic or environmental sense. So the next step was to look at getting their own infrastructure. So they got that grant funding and just started the pilot, and it's going really well. And I wanted to thank Justin Kuhn for all his help with the permitting process there. I wanted to ask too, with the folks on the line who gave the presentations, if anyone has a sense of the total length of time and the total cost it took to get those type 2 facilities permitted. Just to put that out there, I think it's an interesting comparison point for the Beaufort example, which was under 200,000 for the equipment, and it got installed in less than a year. So pretty exciting progress for the state.
Yes, thank you. Well, and thank you for all your help for Beaufort. I know they were very excited about their project. And hopefully we can kind of cover that question next week when we are meeting. And then we heard from Megan McGill with Denali. And then we had Bridget, who is with McGill in Charleston, and then Dallas Bogle, who is with Organics Management, or also folks know it as Compost USA, who are out of Florida, who have been on the call. So we hope that everybody will continue being part of these conversations moving forward. But if you are interested in joining us next week for our in-person discussion, please let us know. As again, we'd love to have any input as we move forward with coming up with these the grants. And then Richard, it looks like you unmuted yourself. So if you would like to just say a few closing words, feel free to.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you, Grace Ann. I just wanted to say thank you. I think this was a terrific session, and I hope you guys stick with us as we put this grant program and together. I know we can't solve everything in one meeting or 1 year, but we can certainly get some things going on. And I really appreciate everyone being here, and stick with us. And I hope to see you at the next meeting. And I'm sure we'll have other virtual calls as well. But thank you. Anytime you have any questions or concerns, whatever, you can email me or Grace Ann or Savannah. We're here to help, and just let us know. But thank you.
And with that, again, if y'all have any questions or any more thoughts, please feel free to send them my direction. I did record this, so I will make it available for folks for referring back to. And Betsy, I know you had mentioned about having the notes. These should show up in the chat, so we will be able to reference them as we're continuing to have conversations. But thank y'all so much for all of your time and your sharing of your programs, as well as for asking questions. But we will look forward to hopefully seeing y'all next week.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank everyone. Bye-bye. Be
Bye.
safe.